Well, hello everybody, and wherever you may be, hope you are well and safe and happy today. This is Frank Leone, and it is episode number 15 of the 77 Group's YouTube channel course on effective communication and effective leadership. And as I think everybody knows, on the odd number weeks, I speak on a chapter from my book, 77 Ways to Perfect Your Communication Skills. And on the even numbered weeks, Mitch speaks on his upcoming and companion book on leadership. So the topic this week for episode 15 is called Qualify, Always Qualify. And it is related to chapter 13 of my book, for those of you that have copies of the book, or a copy of the book, to cross-reference. But in any event, the basic thrust of this whole point, and I think it's an extraordinarily important point, one that I always enjoy talking about, is that life is seldom measured in black and white, that virtually everything involves nuances, and very little is for certain other than mathematical certainty. 2 + 2 = 4. I think I can pretty much count on that. Sun's probably going to keep coming up from the east and not from the west, north, or south in the foreseeable future. So I can count on that. But an awful lot of other things are something less than 100% certain. Yet too often in our discourse, whether it's verbal interchange, public presentations, or written communication, we tend to veer toward the absolute. And we see it every day from major leaders that are out there. And it is a pitfall that I think is extremely important to be aware of and to avoid as you go forward. So that's going to be the topic of my presentation today. Mitch Goddard, some interjections here.
Absolutely. Looking forward to today's topic. Qualify, Always Qualify, from your book, which is really a good, solid, and digestible read. Those of you that have already picked it up, you already know that, and I encourage the rest of you to check it out. You can purchase it at our website, www.77grp.com. Just go to the bookshelf and pick up your copy, and in the very near future, you'll be able to pick up the copy in various formats: hardcover, softcover, audio, and ebook on Amazon as well as some other platforms. So look for that. So just a quick reset as we define what it is Frank and I are trying to do here on our YouTube channel. Frank, obviously, Mr. Communicator, and you will know that for sure as we go through things today. And I talk about leadership, and Frank presents on the odd numbered episodes. I present on the even number episodes. And what we want to do is just share. Basically, between us, we've got over a century's worth of experience. Imagine that. And we're at a point in our careers where we just want to share, help others learn, grow in their personal and professional lives. And we're doing that each week right here on the YouTube channel. And by the way, each week cobbles nicely with a chapter from one of our books. Each book, 77 very easy to read chapters, communication, leadership. So that means this is a 154-week endeavor. We're on week 15 today, and each week we give you 5 tips. So collectively, there's 770 tips coming your way, and we're reasonably confident that most of you will be able to pick a few of them, put them to use, and enhance your personal and professional relationships. So also, we ask that you like us here on YouTube and submit your questions, because we like to interact with all of you who watch. And each week, one of us will pick the question of the week and offer a free personal phone call with either Frank or myself to discuss whatever it is you want to talk about. And with that, Frank, I'm kicking it back your way. Tell us more about today's topic.
Thank you, Mitch. And again, the topic title is called Qualify, Always Qualify. And what we try to do in the books and what we try to do during these YouTube presentations is give a basic topic, give an overview of that topic, and give 5 very concrete tips for executing that suggestion in a way that's most valuable for you. So I have 5 tips. The first tip is called master qualifying phrases. And by that, I mean simply this, that when you say something, if it is short of mathematical certitude, then it veers into the arena of opinion and away from the arena of fact. And when something's an opinion, even though it may be 99% certain, it is important to make sure that you qualify it as something that is less than pristinely certain. So there should be phrases that pepper your verbal exchanges, but also are something that are very much a part of anything that you write. Things that I like to use are, it seems to me, rather than tell somebody they should do something. Or if I were you, I would, as opposed to telling somebody you must. Or if there's something that is factual, but not something that you have definitive proof that the facts are correct, then it's always useful to cite a source. To say that I saw on the Weather Channel this morning that it hit 118 degrees yesterday in San Antonio, breaking a record. Well, I wasn't in San Antonio, I didn't have a thermometer, I don't know if that was a fact. So I am qualifying it to some degree by citing a source rather than stating it as unquestionable fact.
Great sage advice, Frank. You know, we oftentimes fall into that trap of qualifying or not qualifying our phrases and saying this is what you have to do, or other examples like that. So this is good, great sage advice. What do you got for tip number 2?
Tip number 2 is monitor others' uses of absolutes. And this is a sort of a recurring suggestion that I make throughout the book on various topics. And the point here is that oftentimes you can learn as much from monitoring others' performance, albeit often very poor, than you can simply by applying and trying to apply the rules to your own activities. And I have found, whether I'm dealing with a person directly or whether I'm watching something on television, whether it's a speaker or a commentator or whatever it may be, politician, an athlete, that so often they fall into this trap of stating things unequivocally when things should be dealt with equivocally. So it's very, very useful to keep an eye on what others are doing and to really note how they fall down, because it's one of the best ways yourself of learning not to fall down that very same trap when you're dealing with something similar.
So a couple of points come to mind. When you're in a conversation, let's say, go back and forth with someone you're very close to and friendly with, and they fall into that trap that you described, is there a way that you might help shepherd them to a place where their understanding is, on whatever topic it is, more or less crystallizes and becomes more credible versus these absolute declarative statements that people fall into the trap of doing so much?
Well, balance, 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 one of my favorite words in the English language, and it really applies here. I think it's really critical, striking a balance between showing patience and understanding and not being in any way rude to the other party. But it's a sense of balance of trying to get them back on track and to make sure that you understand exactly what they're trying to tell you. And I think the best way toward that end is by interrupting, not to interrupt, by interrupting to ask questions in order to clarify what they're saying. So if they're saying that you must do this, I might not want to say, well, that's really not the way you want to phrase that, my friend, because must is an absolute term. But what I might want to do is ask them simply, well, when you say I must do it, are there any exceptions? What do you mean by must? How absolute is that in your mind? So you're showing them respect by answering questions, essentially deferring to their judgment, but also getting them back on track and maybe moving them away from an absolute position in which they really shouldn't be in the first place.
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense. And it seems that also maybe asking a question for clarity to give them maybe an opportunity to reframe or rephrase in a less declarative way is also might be useful in a case like that.
Yeah, and give both parties a chance to catch their breath.
Sure, sure. Great. All right, number 3.
Tip number 3 is apply qualifications to all written matter. And again, I think it's important to understand that when we're talking about constantly qualifying as appropriate, we are going beyond verbal interchange, although that's very important, and that's spontaneous. That's coming out of you real time.
Sure.
To go to something that is written where you have the luxury of being able to go back and review and edit everything that you write, whether it's an email, whether it's a text message, whether it's a formal letter, whether it's a book, whether it's another document, et cetera, et cetera. And I really go back to my life and career as a consultant. And Mitch, you know about this because you were on the receiving end. Your fine healthcare system was on the receiving end of some consultative work that I did, probably 10, 15 years ago now. And one of the things that I routinely did in every report that either I wrote or a staff member in the company that I ran for 31 years wrote was to go back and look for anything in that report that is an absolute and look for a way to soften that absolute. And in consulting, it's very, very easy because you're basically telling people to do things. It's very easy to fall into the trap that you must do this or do that or do the next thing. You want to protect yourself against that trap because anything that I may have recommended for various reasons could be incorrect. I or my staff are mortal people. I may not have had all the information. Things may change from the time that I'm writing the words to the time that somebody else is reading it down the road. Any of those things can happen. So I think it's very, very important to get those qualifying phrases that I mentioned in tip number 1. It seems to me, if I were you, put those in there based upon what I know to date and so forth, then I am covered. If I am wrong, I am covered.
Yep.
If I missed something that I didn't know, I am covered.
Yep.
I am positioning this as opinion, not as fact. And it shows a considerable degree of humility, which both Mitch and I, it's a word that both Mitch and I talk about over and over again as we talk about effective leaders and effective communicators, is the need to be genuinely humble at all times. And what better way to be humble than to let people know they do not have to do something. It's just, in your opinion, knowing what you know, this is what you think at the present time.
Yeah, and amen to all that. That is such a great tip, knowing that as I have moved into consulting and in my professional life, and even when I was part of that healthcare organization and other organizations leading up to that, in a leadership role, I found that it was artful diplomacy and it is a much softer, more embraceable, and as you say, humble way to present my findings. This is what I see based on the information you provided me. Here's what I would recommend, and leave it at recommendations versus you got to do this or you're gonna perish. But anyway, great tip, Frank. Okay, so we are on tip number 4. What you got?
Tip number 4 is avoid absolutes and certainties. And this is the flip side of having vocabulary that constantly includes phrases like "it seems to me" and "if I were you." This is looking for words that you want to avoid. And classic words would be must or even should. Uh, a classic phrase would be certain, the word certain itself. The word clear, it is clear to me. What's clear? Even the cloudiest days, I mean, even the clearest days, there's a little cloud every now and then up there.
Sure.
So you want to balance your scrutiny of your written and oral vocabulary to not only include qualifiers, but to exclude absolutes and allusions to certainty.
Yep. Yeah. And again, another great point, because basically you're stumbling down that same road to that could ultimately impact your credibility in a negative way. So with that, take us to tip number 5.
Tip number 5, my last tip of the day. Tip number 5 is think, quote, on the other hand, end of quote. OTOH and current online vernacular, and something that appears in a lot of my correspondence with people, because I do think that way. And I think it's really critical to always try to think about what on the other hands might be out there. Before you're about to have a verbal or written exchange with somebody, or even during it, to be very mindful that there's two sides to an awful lot of stories. And I mentioned this in episode 13. There's usually a little truth in both sides of most of these stories. So it's very, very important to sort of understand what might be the counter point to a point that you're trying to make, and really balance whatever you're saying with the knowledge that that other point may have some merit. It may be true in certain circumstances as well, and use that as a sense of balance. So there's that word again, balance.
Yep. Yeah, and it seems to me, as someone who has been trained and practice overall situational awareness, you can really drill down in any form of communication to have that same kind of situational awareness and look for those on the other hands or what if scenarios, so that you're in a better place to receive as well as give. So great points all, Frank. So do you want to spend a moment and kind of run through? We can scroll through all 5 of those tips before we move on.
Okay, so again, 5 tips under the category qualify, always qualify. Tip number 1 is master qualifying phrases. Tip number 2 is monitor others' use of absolutes. Tip number 3 is apply qualifications to all written material. Tip number 4 is avoid absolutes and certainties. And tip number 5 is think, quote, on the other hand, end of quote.
Excellent. So, and again, these are all great tips for communicators, and anybody in leadership will understand the value of these communication tips as well. That's why we put all this together for you. And any one of those today, most people looking to improve or enhance their professional lives can easily put into practice and become a much more effective communicator. All right, so we are nearing the end of today's episode, number 15 of the 77 group channel. Just a quick reminder, we'll be on, we try to get these posted every week on Sundays. And we ask that you like us if you do, and that you subscribe. Remember, subscriptions are free, and you get all this great content that marries up nicely with the book or on its own. We hope it brings value to you. And next week, I'll be taking the lead. We're talking about leadership. And my topic from chapter 12 of my upcoming book is be comfortable or get comfortable with being out in front. Good points for leaders on that one. You'll want to stay tuned and join us next week. And as always, we love the interaction. And if you've got a question for us, just let us know. You can reach out to us either on YouTube or on our personal email via the 77 Group website. You can find Frank at 77grp.com or me, Mitch, at 77grp.com. Send us your questions. We love the back and forth with our viewers. And with that, Frank, I'll turn it over to you to cover any closing thoughts and questions of the week.
Well, speaking of questions, a reminder that we encourage everybody that watches these to not only make comments, but to send us questions. It can be via personal email, and both Mitch and I get some of those, or it can be posted in the comments section beneath this particular viewing. Again, each week we pick one that we receive that we want to respond to on the air, if you will, and offer that person a complimentary 15-minute chat with us about anything germane to the topic they would like to talk about. And that person, who I'm going to mention now, person's name is Artie Siebold. Artie Siebold. Artie, if you look at the top of the screen there, there's my email address, frank at 77grp.com. Send me an email and we can initiate the process of setting up a phone call between the two of us. But Artie's question was, and this goes back to the last presentation that I did, episode 13, it was, if somebody goes off the track and I do have to interrupt them, how do I do this? And it's a tricky question. It's a great question. I sort of partially alluded to it in responding to a question that Mitch posed earlier in this session. But it's tricky because, once again, it's a sense of balance. And to a large degree, I give people some slack and let them go off for a little bit. Because if I was going to be hardcore about it, we'd never get anything done. Every 5 seconds, I'd be interrupting them and say, "Get back on track." So you got to be very careful about overdoing it. Well, on the other hand, you can waste an awful lot of time. Somebody can go off track for 15 minutes. You're just sitting there staring at the ceiling, waiting for them to come back. So there are times when you need to jump in and try to get them back on topic. And the way that I like to do that is analogous to the response that I provided to Mitch's question earlier, is that I like to use it by posing a question back to them, as opposed to saying, "Let's get back on track here. We're deviating. We're going off track. Come on, let's get back on track." I've been there. I've done that. I've tried that. Not only does it really work, but it's a good way to lessen your relationship with the other party. But it's not a bad idea to ask a question that brings them back to the basic topic. So if they are, if the question is, who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl, and they go off talking about the most recent Stanley Cup hockey playoffs, you can at some point say, "Well, I'm really interested to hear who do you think is going to win this year's? The defending champs, or who are the defending champs? I don't remember who they are. Yeah, Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes." Say, "Well, nobody really thought Kansas City was going to win it last year. Who do you think is going to prevail this year?" So you get them back on topic in a cordial way, in an amiable way, in a non-threatening way, in a non-critical way, but you're getting them back. So Artie, that's how I would deal with it, is show patience as long as you can, and then when the patience has run its limit, structure things in a question that's going to get them back on track. So that's that one. And then something else that Mitch and I do every week, which we really enjoy doing, is we like to share a personal thought at the end of the presentation. And something that Mitch and I were talking about before we went live on this, we usually catch up for a few minutes about different things. And we were talking about the two books, that the one that mine is out and his will be out in the not too distant future. How the most important thing to me, and I think Mitch really agreed, is sort of a legacy book. That to me, it's not about making money. I can't imagine that that's going to be a huge moneymaker one way or the other. It's not about restarting a career. I've been there, done that. I'm basically just edging slightly out of retirement mode these days. But it is about somewhere down the road, as well as in the very immediate future, potentially influencing some people, helping some people, giving people ideas, helping people be better communicators to, as the title says, enhance both their personal lives and their professional careers. So I think it's really important to understand that really ultimately the book is trying to exude to everybody who we really are, what our values are, what we've learned in our lives, what we want to share with other people. And incidentally, haven't really mentioned it yet, but want to make sure it should be showing on your screen right now. The title of the book, 77 Ways to Perfect Your Communication Skills, enhancing your personal and professional relationships. And you can order it directly from our website, www.77grp.com. And hopefully by the time this is in full view, it'll be available on all the other platforms as well. Softcover, hardcover, audiobook is good to go, and so is an ebook. So have lots of ways to get your hands on it, lots of different price points to get your hands on it as well. My personal thought is simply this. Live your life by assuming that every day is your last day. And as simplistic and obvious as that notion is, I don't think any of us do a very, very good job of that, even if we're trying to do a good job of it. But yet someday, one day, that day is going to be our last day. And best that we reap the benefits of that many, 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 many times over than just leave it to that one final day. So what are some of the things that are critical in that day, in my opinion? Well, one is to say what you want to say to different people now. I think one of the saddest things, I've lived through this, and I bet Mitch has, and I bet everybody has, is somebody passes on, whether expectedly or not, or unexpectedly, and you say, if I could just have 5 minutes with them, what I wish I would have said, but I never did. Mm. So if you make a practice of doing that every day, then you're covering yourself well, and it's a win-win. You're saying the truth, you're saying what's in your heart, it makes you feel good, it makes the other party feel good. You always like to hear, nice, positive things about yourself. So I think it's a positive thing to do. Another example is just plan. If you should go suddenly, and in this day and age, people can go at any point in time, and just plan. Make sure that you're living your life so that that everything's in place for your loved ones. Should that actually come to pass, enjoy little things. My gosh, I look. There's a palm tree out my window. It's a beautiful tree. It's a gorgeous day in the middle of the summer. I live in a beautiful place, Santa Barbara, California. How extraordinarily fortunate I am to be here. Just little things that you enjoy. And it doesn't have to be things that you see with your eyes. It could be things that you just enjoy, hobbies or whatever the case may be. Be happy, enjoy yourself, live that last day absolutely taking in all that this wonderful world provides to you and has provided to you each and every day. So I think that's important as well. So my personal advice is to live every day as consciously as you can, as though it's your last day. Mitch, back to you.
Hey, awesome thought, and well crafted for everybody. That's so on point as always with you, Frank. Always a great job sharing some terrific insight. And we don't know when that last day is going to be, so it just makes sense to enjoy what you have, appreciate it, and tell the people that you love them. That's a big deal. All right, everybody. Frank, again, another superlative and great job today, as always. Want to thank our viewers on the 77 Group channel here on YouTube. Be sure you like us, subscribe, because it's free. Free is my favorite price. So enjoy our content. And Lord willing, we'll see you all next week right here on the 77 Group.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon.